Now let's start our first question. What do we mean with data storytelling? Simply, it's turning data into a simple, clear story that helps people understand important insights quickly and easily. We all have data around us and we all see reports, charts everywhere, but do we really understand its importance and does it really we remember it after 2 days? This is actually why do we need storytelling, because it is turning data into simple and clear reports or charts or whatever information that we can see easily and understand. Which leads us to our second question. Why does it matter? Why are we actually spending an hour today discussing data storytelling or how to achieve it? First of all, because data is everywhere. It's no longer an option to deal with data and more. With every day, data is growing and it will keep growing in the future more and more. And it is everyone around us, everywhere, sorry, around us, and we deal with it daily. So let's take advantage of this treasure that we have in our hands and deal with it in a different way. It drives emotional connections. So there were many studies that showed that the same data, if you saw it as numbers, text, or visual, it's actually different how you understand it or how it is impacting you. And the result of these studies were showing that charts really make an impact. And it is very important also to encourage the data-driven culture. So it helps us in making decisions. So by presenting data within a narrative or a chart or a story, it actually helps stakeholders understand the why behind the numbers and not only the what. So you can see the what or what the numbers or your data, but you don't understand the why or what is the next step in making the decision. So we know what is storytelling. Why do we need storytelling in our lives? And now for the key components of effective data storytelling, we start with the data. And with starting with the data, it is the foundation of our story. After that, we use this data to create a narrative, which actually is used to create the visual that will make the impact. Do you have a question? Okay. So as we already explained, numbers and charts show data, but a story makes the data make sense. A story helps turn information into insights that guide better decision. And that's why we will start with showing a sample or an example how actually data is turned into a story, and how do we start with raw data, which can be either saved in spreadsheets, as you can see in my sample here. It can be in your CRM, in your databases, in any kind of data source that you do have, and how we can understand this data and turn it into a useful story. Creating a story doesn't actually start very simple, and like that, you need to go through steps, and this we will explain later, but I will start with explaining how I did it with my sample. This is a sales report in 2019 and 2010, 20, where we were seeing the performance issues that we're facing. This is an example. It's not real data. It's just to show you how we're moving from spreadsheet or raw data into a really story that will make an impact. So I would like to start with showing you my report. So as I said here, I started with raw data, which was saved in spreadsheets in my case. And the goal of this report is to create a sales performance report in 2019-2020 to see what can I do in my sales department. So we started with the spreadsheets. We understood our data. We saw what details do we have? We have sales by product, we have sales by subproducts, by age, gender, region, and country. So we do have multiple things that is in my data. And as I know that my end goal is I want to see the performance. So we started with creating a report, which is a good report. It applies all the best practices in design. We're using good charts. We're not actually clustering things. It's not complex, and the colors are coherent and they all have meaning. So this is a good report. I can filter with the years. So I can see, for example, where did I sell most in 2019? It's very obvious that my main selling points was in Metzingen, and I do have here, for example, in the software, I made the best in my software. I did the most sales were through adults, and for gender it is equal, almost equal. I can do this also for 2020, and I can do it for both years to see the comparison. So let's take a good look into this report. I already covered everything in my data. So I'm covering what categories I sold the most in across the 2 years, what was the age group that I have sold, what was the gender, and what was the region. And I can filter, for example, for countries by just clicking on the filter here or whatever. So this is a simple chart that can show the details of my report. So as I said, this is a good report. It is way better than the spreadsheets that I have. It is understandable, but you all saw this report. And let's assume that you are a sales manager and you want to present this report to your CEO, or let's say not present the report, let's go and say that you will go and give the insights that you understood from this report to your CEO. By looking into this, you can think for like 1 second, 5 seconds. What can you tell your CEO about this report? Do you already have any insights, or do you know where did we meet better? Do you have any decisions, any idea about data? It's all here. It's all well visualized, connected, interactive, but still I don't see any relations, and it didn't actually give me any understanding of my data. I just see everything here. So the next step after I understood my data, I get it, I have it all in visuals. I looked into this report and I say that still not clear for me. So I went to the next step. And for the next step, we actually go and say that I can see that in 2019, in my first report, I was doing good, but I actually have 100K extra in my software in 2020. So this is actually a boom in my software department here, and I can say that this idea can help, but I need to see where did I get this. So what we did in the second report is we had the same information, which is the quantity sold or the sales across products, because we saw that it is actually different. And we saw that in quarter one and two in 2019, we made no sales. But in quarter three, we can say that we started doing sales in the academy, and we have a huge increase in the software department. So it's very here clear that we have in quarter three a huge increase in our software department or software sales, and this can makes it very clear now where did we do good in the past 2 years and what did we do different in quarter three that made this huge increase. Going to 2020, we all actually went up. Sometimes we went down in some quarters, and then we're up again in quarter two. But then in quarter three, we actually decreased from the highest end, which was around 200K to 28K. So now it's very obvious that we did something wrong. The second thing that was really different in our data is the locations, because in the first report, I saw that we are operating across 3 different countries and 6 regions, I guess. And now I can see here that these details here is actually not going. So I can see that in Germany we're doing the most. Then in Greece and in Palestine we're doing almost nothing in our sales. So now we can understand that we need to focus more on why did we made the most sales in Germany, and why is it actually regarding software and academy, and the hardware is remain the same. So it's obvious that even in quarter three that we lost the hardware sales. And here now I have more insights about my data. I can see the trend. So with seeing a trend now, we're moving from good visuals now to great visuals with more meaning. And I can see how my work was doing in the past, but still it's not clear what I did here. So again, we're the sales managers and we want to report this to the CEO. I do have now a clear trend to report. I can say that we had a good, in quarter three, we have a good software sales, and it was mainly in Germany and Greece. We did bad in hardware and in Palestine. So I have something to report now. But after that, we missed here, for example, the age group, which was also something very important. Going here, my age was almost, sorry, my gender was almost 50-50, so I can see that it doesn't affect my report or my decision. It's just equal and will not help me in my report, so I can remove this information from here because it's not useful. And what I did is I removed here the age group, which was really important. So for this report, it is a great report. Now I do have a trend, but I removed an information which is important. And now we will go for my final report that I was able to accomplish so that we can present to the stakeholder of the report, and they will have a full understanding and they will remember. So if I ask you now to just tell me what was the sales, even though I already mentioned it, what was the sales in 2019 or 20 in a specific region, you can't, because you just forget and you need to go back to the report every time to see these differences and to connect the points to each other. And what we did is we did a story that will actually be remembered. After we tell a story, it will be something that affects us and we can move it and share it with others. And one more thing is that even though we wish, because one of our rules is to have, let's say, less charts in my reports so that I don't confuse my stakeholders. So you are stakeholders of reports. You see data every day. When you see too many charts, it is confusing, it is meaningless, and as I said, you will forget what you saw. So it's always best to keep it simple, but not this simple because we lost some important information. So we wish that we can have one chart that covers all the information that we need, but we can't. That's why it's okay to use multiple visuals and it's okay to have different details in my data, but it should be related and it should be easily to understand. So in my final report, actually, we did here a chart that shows that in 2019, we had a total sales of 314K and it increased to 400 in 2020. We had a booming in the software as we saw in the past reports, which actually 80K extra. We have 9K extra in the academy, which is good, but we lost in our hardware department. So this is something that can be important, and now we will go to our story. I will be explaining or presenting this report to my stakeholders. As I said, we have an extra 100K, but we saw that it was in the software department and mainly in Germany, so Metzingen and Stuttgart and Thessaloniki. The story behind it is that in 2019, just one second, I need to drill down to 2019. In 2019, in quarter two, in the second quarter, and I can go deep to it just to see When exactly? So I can see that in July, for example, 2019, we introduced an application. This application was mainly concerning adults and young adults, so youth and seniors didn't do it. So let's say we introduced a task planner and it was in German. So introducing a new software made our sales in software very, very high. And as it was in German, it was in these three locations the highest, while in Palestine, Ramallah, and Jerusalem, it was not doing well because we have more German speakers in these areas than others. So the story behind it is that we introduced a task planner that was concerning adults and young adults. It was German speaking. In addition, we introduced a course in the academy in July as well. So this is the story, and now I think every one of you can say this story to your stakeholders that we had an increase in software in Q2, and that's because we introduced a new software. And now we can understand why is it mostly in Germany and Greece, not in Palestine? And why is it interesting for adults and youth and not young adults and seniors? We can go deeper with the data. So let's go back one step and go down in 2020. We can see that 2020 we still made a huge return in the software academy as well. Hardware was still doing good until we reached the second quarter. And with the second quarter, let's say we have a crisis or we had something that happened to our company, we can go to the details of it and see what happens in the quarter, and we can see that in July we made no sales. So we can see why actually we had a minus in the hardware. Why did we didn't do good in the academy? Maybe the course ended by this time, and for the software a new competitor introduced an English version or a better version, and we didn't enhance our software. So this now, by seeing this data, I know the story behind my numbers. I know why I have this increase and decrease in 2022 and 2020, sorry, and I know where I was focusing on which location, which languages, which products, and now I am ready to make the decision on how to enhance the performance of my team. Any questions until now? After what we saw about how to turn your data into a report and into a story, we will go now deeper on how to do it. I showed you an example and we want to see or get started with data storytelling. First of all, what we need is actually to define our objective. In our case, we were doing a sales performance report, and the purpose of it was I need to see the sales performance and trends in a specific period, which was the 2 years that we already presented. What is the impact, or what are the actions that needs to be taken based on this report, and how to make the sales manager enabled to take the decision on this report. After defining our objectives, I need to understand who is the audience. So the demographics of them, in my case, it was sales managers, sales leads. Their interests were in sales targets, regional performance, and product sales. And their knowledge is very important to see what topic they're focusing on. So if they're interested in KPIs or specific metrics, but they don't understand the complex data analysis, that's why we keep it simple. So it's very important to know what is the knowledge level. And after understanding our audience, we need to understand our data. So the source is very important. In my case, it was spreadsheet, but we do have enormous sources around, and each of us actually is using way too many data sources. The quality, is it accurate? Is it reliable? Can I use it to give real insights, or maybe it have, let's say, dummy data in it or something? So we need to ensure the quality of my data and the key insights and what are the key takeaways that I want to take from this, which was in my case, for example, the patterns, where was my peak sales, and what periods actually we were doing good or underperforming. After understanding my data, I need to create my narrative. So I need to create a structure. What is the introduction, the body, and conclusion of my story that I will show in the end, and how is the progression of the idea. So I show you steps on how we started with the flow with a simple data, a raw data, to a report, to a better report, and then a story. So there is a flow. Next would be choosing the right visuals. So in each of my reports, I use different set of visuals, and actually in one of the reports, I was trying to use a map in the location because it will give more um, insights about my data. But unfortunately, the countries I was using are actually not close to each other, so it will be really not very clear. But it is very important to know what kind of graphs and charts we're using. So each chart and graph is explaining something different. I used a line chart in some, in bar chart in some. So it depends on what I want to show with my insights. And the design is very important. So as I said, we don't need too many visuals in my report because it will be very complicated and not easy on the eye. I also don't want to use too much colors because I know it might be eye-catching and nice, but I need meanings to this color. So if I'm using too much colors, it should be meaningful and it should be consistent. If I'm using red for drop downs, then in each report I need to use red and drop downs, not to use it once at drop downs and in the next chart I'm using it for something that is going up or a different thing. So I need to keep it consistent so that the user, when they look at a color, they can relate and they can easily understand. In addition to the colors, we can use the company colors, for example, and logos, but make it clear and understandable. And we can always use text to make it clearer. So visuals are important, but if I didn't use legends, texts, numbers in it, it will not be very clear. So always use text. And there are many best practices for the design of the report. Make it engaging. So as you saw, my reports were interactive and was I have used storytelling techniques. It was simple. So make it engaging and make the avoid complex visuals or make the end users be relaxed when you see the report. And then we need to iterate and refine. So you don't get your report or your story ready from the first time. You need to iterate. You need to go to a series of feedback, maybe go to your stakeholders. They will give you feedback of something they need to know better, and we need to adjust it and go again for this refinement part. And finally, we need to know how to present the data. If we didn't choose the correct presentation methods or we didn't say it correctly, then we will not provide the data, the story as it should. So next is actually the structuring of a data-driven story. How is it structured? The elements of a compelling story, it's introduction. So set the context. What is the story about? Then we do have a conflict, define the problem or challenge, and then we do have a resolution where you show how data provide insight or solutions. To make it clearer, with my introduction, what is the story about? The story I just showed you was about sales performance. What is the conflict? The conflict is that in quarter three in 2020, we have underperformance, so we're not doing good. The resolution was we don't give decisions, and my role, what we do is we present the data. So show data in a way that it's presentable and show the insights, and then the end users or the stakeholders, the person who's responsible, can take the decision and see what are the solutions. What is the path of the data storytelling or data storytelling arc? We start by setting and hook. So the background, the situation, characters, the details we explain. Then we go to the rising points from supporting informations. And then we go to the aha moment where we find the central insights. And finally, we will go to the solution and next steps, which will be decision making, and the audience will be enriched and likelihood to act is increased. So they know more about their data, they know how to actually take decisions next. So basically, this was how we are creating a report and how we are performing. And data storytelling or reporting or business intelligence in general is not for a different specific industry or a specific profession. It's actually used by every industry, every profession, and it can be helpful in all our aspects because data is all around us regardless what we do, and we can always take advantage of it. Examples of storytelling, we do have here examples of appealing reports with visuals, easy to understand. And here, for example, we do have an outage report. And it is important that we need to set context and then define the problem, then the resolution, and this what should be affected in our reports by just seeing how the data is done. You can see there are text and everywhere there are easily done charts. You can see the trends or how is it done by over years. Another example is the customer satisfaction. You can see you can do different kind of design. You don't need to stick to any kind of rule, but it's very obvious that you can see the details of it here. This is a very, very simple story and have a question. What is the number one challenge to being productive? The question is really can be very good example because now you remember what these data about. You can see what is the number one challenge. It is distractions. Is it 20% interruptions, 3% wrong tools, 22 time management, and 13% other stuff. So text is used here and also explained what kind of distractions do we have, interruptions, and so on. And also you can do it for different ranges, age ranges, and it will be clear what are the challenges. So in the past examples and also in the demo we already created, we saw too many visuals, and with visuals it is very important to use the right visuals. We can use charts, graphs, infographics, dashboards, or you can use the usage of data visualization with pie charts, line or graphs for trends. So we do have multiple charts, and each chart actually reflects the idea I want to give about my data. So it's very important to understand what chart to use. And with the design principles, we can see the clarity, simplicity, emphasis is very, very important. So the main key concept is to be clear, simple, and we need to avoid misleading visuals, clutter, overcomplicated designs. As I said, too much color, too much text, or whatever of things that will be annoying to the end users. The best practices in visual storytelling is aligning visuals with the narrative. So the main component of the story was the narrative, and each visual should support a key point. So if we do have multiple visuals showing the same key point, it doesn't make any sense. And omitting a key point, as I said in my report, I removed, for example, the age group, which was a key point, then I'm losing a very important part of my story. Colors is really important, and we can highlight the critical data or the things we want to see. So whenever I'm using a report with too many details, colors might be eye-catching and will be directly looked at. So it is very important to highlight it, the critical information with colors. One example to see how best practices in visual storytelling is done is to see a before and after visual redesign and how it was improved with clarity. And this is what we did with the beginning of our webinar by showing how our report went from raw data to good visuals to create and then to the story that we want to achieve or to present to our stakeholders. Next is what tools do we use for data storytelling? We actually have many tools in the market. You can use Tableau, you can use Click, Power BI, Google Data Studio, and this is because they have ease of use, integration with data sources, advanced visualization options, and at Axsos we are experienced with Power BI, and all our demos today are done on Power BI, and also we will show you later what services we provide on it. Creating interactive and engaging stories. First, you need to have the right techniques, so animations, interactive dashboards, multimedia. Make it something that the end user is really relieved to use. And we can do an engagement through interaction, increased audience engagement, and improved understanding of the content. So that's why we need to really understand our data and have our story very clear, very simple, so that it is clear to understand. So until now, do we have any question? Cool. So going next, we will go to case studies. So tools in action. As I said, we will be presenting Power BI reports, but we have multiple other tools to use. And the storytelling is not for a specific industry or a specific profession. We will view multiple reports on different aspects, and one of it is, for example, a marketing dashboard, allow user to explore data. The outcome of it is improved decision making, speed, and accuracy. So let me just switch my screen again to show you how good reporting can be. So this is a demo about Axsos, and with this we can see how we can use pictures, we can use flags, we can use different ideas. And for example, I want to see our German employees, I want to see the employees that are working in marketing, I want to see our Palestinian employees, I want to go and see the details about myself. So you can make it actually very interactive, and you can see whatever details you want. So this is a story that we can see about Axos, its location, its departments, and its employees. Second is we already saw a sales demo or a sales report where we saw the sales performance, but we can say more about it. So we can actually use it in our sales and marketing to see the market share across different periods and across different categories. And also we can set it on region level, on whatever actually details here. These are all important to see the market share. Next is, for example, the year to date. You can see that in every level we're using different chart, different colors. And here, for example, I just make it and that these are the names of the manufacturer. It's not easy to pronounce, but I'm using the same colors to show the manufacturer. So if I'm using this one, for example, it's using the purple color, and I can see it actually across the total units per month, and then the total units variable, so percentage across. And I can see, for example, that here Van Artsel was the highest on January. Why actually it's year to date the variable was even like less than the first one. So using the same color make us just do the connection. And this here chart show what is our most. So you can see that the highest is actually in the east, for example, this provider and so on. We can use it on a map as well, so we can see that for state here is actually doing the most well and how it is done for other states. So different kind of visual. Each visual is showing a different thing. Here, for example, we can see from the center point who's doing good, who's doing bad. And for example, we're doing in district 4, we're going toward the minus, while we're doing very good in district 13. So every chart can show different idea and different details. And with the growth opportunity, we are having here, the same idea, a trend or a line graph that's showing the trend across, for example, the period or the regions. Next, after we're done with sales, marketing, we're going to customer profitability. And with customer profitability, I can see the revenue, the team scorecard. I can choose which customer and I can see where we're doing good with this customer. And we can see, for example, that in February we did very bad with them, while another month they were doing good. Same with the revenue here, and where did this customer actually, for example, revenue per state, and it's done the same for all customers, or you can just see the total of all customers in one place. Next is here we do have a different chart, which is here we do have this bubble chart, and it shows, for example, that we're doing the best in high tech. So it's that our highest revenue variable is actually in the high tech. So it's very clear. We can just choose what industry and so on filters. And we can have a scorecard that is done for mobile, for example, or interactive, because these are interactive report that can be used on your mobile. Also, not only sales, marketing, or we're not only focusing on customers, also in human resources, we can check what are our new hires, what are our activities, or actually separations, what are the bad hires, and then we can make decisions. So we can see that in January, we actually have new hires, and in June, we had the most hires. The groups of hires, where was it, in the north, or so the locations or regions. We can see also here on the details of by month, which was part-time, full-time, male, female, how the age groups, is it like less than 30, and we can see that most of our employees were less than 30, while we do have like almost 2 hires, which was 50. Additional information about the new hires that can actually help us to make the decision. And for bad hires, for example, I can see that we do have hires that have less than 60 days of employment. And this is very important information, that you do have text to explain what you mean by this report, because visuals alone are not very or are not enough in our cases. So you can see that most of our bad hires, or the people who's leaving, are people under 30. Then we can go deeper and to see these 30, where they females or males, in which region they are actually most of it. So you can see, or in which month they left. So one story could be that people here are actually leaving in March and in July. So let's say, for example, that in March we do, or in July, one of these months, let's say June, we do the assessment of my team, and then the July we give promotions or raises. So we do have people who are leaving because they were expecting a raise or a promotion. So that actually makes sense that we do have high levers here, but going to March, we still don't know what is the reason. So, with every week, with every information, we need to have a story behind it. Now, with this one, it's very clear to me that the bad hires are because of the promotion and the raises or the assessment that was done, and people were not taking. And then I need to go and see why in April actually it was less. It might be because we have less hires. So it's not always related to a reason. It might be that in April we actually hired too much, or a situation in the country happened or whatever. So there should be a story behind every detail of my data. So these are simple examples of how my data or case studies, how we can use Power BI on our data, and how my data actually can be meaningful and interactive. After we finish the real world examples and case studies, sales, marketing, HR, also finance. I didn't give an examples about finance, but it's very, very important in finance to have also a story behind your numbers, where you were getting good revenue, bad revenue, where is my cost high, so I can make a decision, because even financial information is really important to be told as a story. The common challenges that are faced are that actually we do have data overload and misalignment with audience needs. So, for example, us as a company, we are dealing with data from our sales department, marketing, financials. We do have different data sources, different tools that we use. So we do have a lot of data around us, and this can be really a challenge. The second is the misalignment with the audience needs. So let's say that I created the report, I added all this information, but my end user or my stakeholder actually doesn't want to see the sales performance of by product. So they don't want to see that the software did well. They want to see it by gender. So it's very important to them to see on what aspects do we need. So it's very important to understand what is actually needed from my story. The solution is that we focus on key insights. We have to simplify complex data and tailor to the audience. So we need to understand our audience because it is very important. They are the one who's seeing the report. They need to understand it, and they need to actually use this report, and not only creating this report for nothing. So, for a recap of the takeaways we had in our webinar, we started with what is storytelling, what's the matter or the importance of it, how to transform your data into stories, and how powerful tool is actually can change, how to structure a compelling narrative, use visuals tools to enhance the story, and the role of visuals and tools in enhancing the story. We need to choose the right visuals to convey the message effectively, because if we used a wrong visual, then we will not deliver the idea. With Axsos, we use Power BI, and we actually invite you to change the freedom and control your numbers. The services we provide in Axos, and that can help you with the storytelling and how can we actually share our experience with you, is in three different ways. First of all, we do have the Power BI empowerment trainings. We provide trainings about Power BI and reporting storytelling, and this is done through Access Academy. We can also provide you with a customized workshop, so we can start with you from scratch, understanding your data, and use your data on teaching or training your employees, and empower them how to use your own data sets in making stories and in making the right reports. And the third one is that we can do the implementation. So we can take over and do your reporting dashboard development from scratch. So we provide three different services, and we would like really to have contact with you. We have one second, a very dedicated team, and our team is specialized in business intelligence, Power BI, and Power Platform. And we already implemented different stories and the data implementations to different customers, and would like to see all of you.